All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Today is November 11th. No, it's November 10th, 2020. It's been a while since it's been a while since I've gone live here. I've been doing a lot of pre-records. I have a special guest tonight, so I'm starting a few minutes early. I want to first apologize to everyone who thought the stream was going to be a few days ago. I think in the flurry of everything that I have to do, and I set it up for November 7th at 7:45. So there were two likes on this already. But as I was setting the stream up, I realized, whoa, that was 3 days ago. So I apologize for that. I am going to I have a special guest tonight. I'm going to play the intro, and he will probably join me shortly. I hope he joins me shortly. This promises to be a fun discussion. I don't know. I'm certain many of my subscribers have heard of Aaron Clarey, but there are quite a few who probably have not. So this is going to be a fun discussion. I'm going to play the intro, and then I think, well, he should be rolling in sometime soon. If not, I will entertain until he gets here. So I'll see you guys on the other side of the intro. Please hit that like button. Oh, there he is right there. Let me play the intro right now, and we'll get this going. You guys, you ever get that nervous feeling when a celebrity shows up in your backstage and you realize, okay, he's here. All right. Let me just set the stage really quickly. So I was watching one of Aaron's podcasts earlier, so I'm going to introduce the vocabulary word operating system. I think earlier he was dressed in a suit and he was talking. I think he's back there laughing. I think he was talking about we're going to talk about a lot of things today. Some things for people who are not familiar with these things, they may be alarming. There are things that the mainstream media is not covering, and there are things that just aren't being talked about. So he was talking about, I think, uh, for this generation of men and the ones coming after, the lack of willingness to work, or the lack of um, desire to work. Aaron talks about that quite a bit. So operating systems. So I think he asked some questions about what what's in the operating systems of these younger men, and what will be in the operating systems of them going forward. Aaron's published several books. I'm an aspiring author myself. Um, my book is a bit of an epic. It's a longer piece, and one it's a basketball story. I think Aaron calls us sports guys dude bros. I'm a dude bro. I like sports. I like science fiction and superheroes. But the story, it's a basketball story, but it's about learning how to compete. So it's learning how to put those competitive aspects in your operating system. And I think there were things that I got at home. There was an operating system that I got at home that I was able to evolve and tweak over the years. And this was a crucial experience for me. But I think the significance of what Aaron talked about earlier was what's in the operating systems of the men today and the younger men based upon society. So what effect is the environment having on men today? Um, Economists. Aaron is an economist. Most of you know that I've taken an interest in economists lately. The link for this is in the description box, by the way. Um, I like hanging out with economists. They don't spin things. They give you the data. They give it to you straight, and they don't spin things. They don't sugarcoat things. So you guys know that I had Dr. Anthony Davies and James Harrigan here recently. So I'd like to have more discussions with economists and more authors. I want to hang out with more authors as I'm an aspiring author myself. So with that, I'm going to zip it, and then I'm going to bring up Captain Capitalism, Aaron Clarey. This is going to be interesting because Aaron doesn't know what I'm going to ask. He said, "Don't send me the questions. I'm just gonna see what you ask, and then we'll jump into it." So here we go.
First, we have to clarify a couple things here, Anwar. There is no way you are a dude bro. You can like sports. The dude bro it's almost irrelevant of sports. Okay, dude bro is the guy who orders bottle service in Vegas on his credit card, drives a lease Beamer, but has like less net worth than the waitress he's trying to pick up. Okay, there's no way, not with a doctorate in pharmacology and a deep philosophical podcast and with the jazz intro, there's no you're immune to dude broness. You cannot achieve it. There's no way that's going to happen. So and no one's perfect. You can enjoy your sports ball if you'd like, but you are not a dude bro. No.
Well, Aaron, I appreciate that. I was, when I heard you mention that term, I was thinking, okay, I got the Michigan flag back there. I'm watching the football games every Saturday, and
here. Do you wear sunglasses indoors at night?
No.
You are not a dude bro. It would be like you might be a redneck, you might be a dude bro. You don't qualify. It's I'm trying to think what else, if you have $1,000 pair of shoes, maybe, but no, there's no way you can be a dude bro. No.
Okay. All right. Well, how are you doing today?
Good. Was I late? Or
no. I just you're a honored guest, so I figured I'd start early, and I just made my little.
I like how you think you got to hang out with economists. Like I'm thinking, like you need better hobbies, man. That's I know you're a geek on the side with your sports / geek comment channel, but I don't know if any economists like, oh well, someone wants to hang out with us, so we're kind of impressed.
Well, Aaron, I grew up. There were books in the house. Education was encouraged, so I like information, and I like learning about trade-offs and unintended consequences and all those things. So that's fascinating to me, and that's arguably a science in itself.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's all I can. Yeah, it's the efficient allocation of resources, but obviously a decision has to be made on how to allocate those resources most optimally. And Thomas Sowell said it best. He's like, there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs, because you're always giving up something, the next best alternative to pursue the best alternative. And people, if you look, it's kind of interesting. Everyone, because they don't have perfect information, they make the best decision they can with the information they have at the time. And a lot of times in retrospect, it turns out to be the wrong choice, or maybe not the most optimal choice. But even when people make the optimal choice, they still rue and regret and let the choice foregone ruin their enjoyment of the choice they made. And so that's a real interesting thing where you're like, well, you succeeded, you did this, or that thing went the way you wanted it to, but now you're regretting that you didn't do the thing but you wouldn't have the thing that you have now because you made the choice. So I don't know, maybe economics gets boring with all the math and the logic and decision, and then you start to delve into human psychology a little bit, which cannot be quantified, but is much more interesting, and I would say even macabre and kind of depressing to look at, but it's definitely more interesting than, calculating producer surplus or something dry like that.
Okay, will you all also deal heavily in data and numbers and percentages? And as we'll discuss, uh, there's a lot of propaganda flying around today, so people don't know left from right. People don't know
Right.
what's up or down. So I like that as well. Okay. All right. We see you have the background of I know you're in flyover country.
Well, yes,
I'm out
but
here.
the capital of flyover country, nothing but the bustling cultural mecca of Rapid City, South Dakota. Yeah.
Okay, this is Montana, but
Not
flyover
Montana.
country. It looks very peaceful versus the hustle and bustle of the East Coast.
Oh yeah, well that's true. Yeah, there's nowhere near as many people. Obviously, some drawbacks as well. Like we don't have Brazilian steakhouses here. And you don't have what else? There's no Trader Joe's, much to the chagrin of my girlfriend. There's no Trader Joe's. But there ain't no traffic, and it's pretty. And I found a poker group and a cigar lounge, so I'm kind of set. I don't need much more than that, so I'm pretty good to go.
Okay. Well, Aaron, I want to be respectful of your time.
We'll take the time. I got nowhere to be. We're gonna go have dinner afterwards. That's it. So we're in no rush. So
okay. Well, for those who don't know, and I haven't heard it in a while myself, tell us. I mean, I know who you are. Tell us the Aaron Clarey story. How did you go from being a working Joe and a ballroom dancing
dancer? Yeah. Oh, you want to go that far back? Okay.
YouTuber?
All right. I thought
just
you wanted
give us in as much detail as you want.
Okay, going way back, I'm a preacher's kid, which means the Lord will provide. And if you ever wonder if the Lord will provide, he does not provide. He provides opportunity, of which most of my family did not take advantage of. So we were poor. My first job, if you want to go like real working jobs, was collecting cans in Michigan and getting 10 cents a can in 1983, 1984. Worked at a greenhouse in the 7th and 8th grade, landscaping type of thing. Went to college for finance, got a degree in finance, interned, worked in banking for, depending on where you want to measure it, 15 to 20 years. But then concurrently, to make ends meet, because finance was incredibly unreliable in terms of employment, I did some ballroom dance classes on the side at night. And then I also started teaching just at the very beginning when online classes were starting to become a thing. I started teaching some basic personal financial management courses. And then as the internet grew and bandwidth expanded, we went from blogging to podcasting to YouTubing. And about 8 years ago, I set up a company called A-Hole Consulting. It is not A-Hole Consulting is spelled out. And because I had, that was the other thing. I wrote some books going back to 2008 as online publishing became a thing. And they took, and a lot of people had a lot of questions about finance and investing, as they would. And I didn't really have time to answer all the questions. And so I set up a consulting company where, for a reasonable, affordable cost or fee, I'll tell you. But the whole point is I get to be an a-hole. I don't have to spare your feelings or be nice, which keeps the cost down. So I can tell you you're a moron or where you screwed up and why you're an idiot in 2 minutes, and then you're on your way. And so that's kind of, I guess, what I'm most known for in different circles. And now left the city. I'm in South Dakota. I still do everything from home, and yeah, that's about it. That's kind of it. So.
Well, your typical day at the office. I follow you on Twitter as well. Is the background there? You're out hiking and sightseeing and taking pictures and biking.
Well, that's the I'm so obviously I'm remotely employed. I can work from my laptop, and in South Dakota, a lot of people don't know this, but there's a little small mountain range called the Black Hills. This is where Mount Rushmore is, and I love it because the mountains aren't too tall. where I'd get altitude sickness. So that's only about 7,000 feet. So I can hike those and ride motorcycles. Is also where the Sturgis Rally is. So it's a nice little enclave a lot of people don't know about. And yeah, I'm out there hiking in this. I do my work. I do my consulting. I'll write a book or whatever. But then the day is over or the work is done, or I just don't feel like looking at a computer screen anymore. And then I go out and I'll go hiking or fossil hunting or shooting guns or riding the motorcycle. And I like to say hi to all my friends on social media who mainly, do you know the Masculine Geeks, Vince and those guys?
I'm not familiar.
All right. Well, it's basically just to pick on them because some of them still have real jobs. So I like to pick on them. So I take pictures of the different hikes I'm on and the fun I'm having, and just to rub it into my buddies back at home. That's kind of what I do.
Okay. You know what? I didn't write that question down, but let's start there because
All right.
this is kind of on the minimalism track, and you talk about how you were in the financial sector and you were able to see some of the housing mess coming,
Mhm.
and you're very outspoken about jobs. Well, jobs suck after a while,
Yeah.
and it becomes a bit of a slog, and it becomes very, very brutal. And I can attest to that. That even with a cushy I see I didn't yeah, I'll just say it. Even with a cushy federal career, yeah, it
Mhm.
can become a bit of a slog after a while. You're fighting each other for promotions, and you're trying to elbow each other up the ladder, and you're getting evaluated every year, and you're almost like sacrificing your soul every day.
Yeah.
When did you how did you come to that realization yourself?
It wasn't until probably I was 30 or 31. I mean, I was always moving that way. I had ballroom dance courses on this. Oh, but I worked security. I forgot to mention that. This entire time I worked security part-time here or there for a buddy. Um in the finance industry where that uh soul-sucking aspect of a career started to become apparent. It was right off the bat starting to intern, but I thought it was just bad luck. But the independence was, I could pull it off more because I had multiple sources of income. I had security, ballroom dance, my dance class, or not my dance classes, my finance classes. I also bought rental property when I was younger. So I didn't have to tolerate corporate BS. And if you hadn't worked in banking, it is the corporate BS has turned out to 11 there, which you, in hindsight, I think everybody sees with the housing crisis and banks need to be bailed out, and just how the sheen of bankers has come off now. Like when you and I were younger, oh my God, Wall Street, and now Wall Street. So I work at Wall Street. I'm like, well, sucks to be you. Like that was a sought after and prestigious career, and now it's like, oh, who are you stealing money from this time? So there's that, but that's the type of people, and it was an impossible environment because my job and most of my career was to report the facts to the higher ups on whether or not they should lend or not. And they would dismiss it, tell me my numbers were wrong, and go ahead and make a loan and investment anyway. But where it became as clear as day, where I'm like, I'm never going back, was I was about 30 or 31, and this one banker, who is not my boss, like the line goes across, it does not go down, it goes across. He was hounding on me to get to approving his applicant's loan approval. I'm like, I can't do that because the latest tax returns I have are 3 years old. You haven't given me any other updated income statements, so I can't do it. So this guy kept hounding me until one day he came in and he says, oh, you're working on whatever, the Johnson file. I'm like, no, as I told you before, until I get new data, I can't work on the Johnson file. He said, well, I need all the files and you don't have to work on it anymore. I'm like, oh, yeah, why is that? Well, the feds are here and they're raiding. He's under investigation. And I looked at him and smiled and said, really? And then when the housing market came and I saw how exposed, because I was still under the idea that these guys, because they had gray hair and they were older than me and we're in a bank and it's serious. Then I realized that it's just a scam. These guys are frauds. They're just trying to generate their income based off of volume and not making good loans. And when I saw that whole thing fall apart and that was vindicated and I wasn't crazy, you kind of peered behind the curtain. And that's why I'm like, I'm not dealing with this crap ever again. And I think that's where a lot of established employers kind of got caught with their pants down, where people are like, no, I'm not dealing with that anymore. No, you're lying. No, you're not this all-knowing superior supervisor of mine. You're just a guy who's older than me, who's in worse financial shape. And so when that happened, I relied solely on my rental income, security guard work, all the other sources of income. But by this time, my book sales had been starting to kick in. Or I said, forget it. I don't need this daytime job anymore. And so I ended up consulting one bank and then going to working for another one because they gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. But I made sure that I was paid very handsomely and I didn't take any guff. And naturally, it didn't work at either bank. And I think one bank had to shut down. The other bank closed a branch or an office. But that's what it was, is the housing crash. And then seeing behind the curtains, watching all these bankers get exposed and realizing that no one knows what they're doing. And so that's what that was like the final nail, where I'm like, if I'm going back to regular employment, it's on my terms and it's going to be a contract, if anything. And if I have to do a real job, it'll be something like truck driving or working security at night where I'm left alone. I don't have a boss around me all the time. So that's kind of growing up poor, not having a stable job at all or career. So I was very conservative with my money. And then just having low expenses, that's what enabled it, where that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm done. I'm not going to be the corporate executive anymore. Now I'm going to go hike out in Glacier, Utah, ride my motorcycle, enjoy life until I'm dead.
Okay. Um, so you said you grew up poor. Where did you, because the first time I heard about multiple streams of income was
Mhm,
from the Rich Dad Poor Dad books.
mhm,
Both my parents, go to school. I'm sure we're gonna go back to this. Go to school, get a job, work for someone until you can't work anymore.
mhm.
But where did you get that mindset of multiple streams of income?
It kind of accidentally happened. I don't know if and I had read Robert Kiyosaki or any one individual person, but it kind of happened to be. I always had two cars. They were crappy cars, but there were two cars because they were crappy and one would inevitably break down. But then I couldn't afford the downtime, especially in Minnesota where it's very cold. So I always had two, and I just happened to develop multiple streams of income. For a while, immediately after college, I was working as a security guard. And I was just sitting there bored out of my mind because it's the night shift. I'm like, well, I'm going to see, maybe there's some programs where I could teach dance class. And so it was kind of out of boredom and accidentally fell into it. But I remember to this day, the US West building working downtown Minneapolis, they had a fax machine. I was like, oh my gosh. And I could send out my proposals to the different community education programs. And I got some response, and all of a sudden I had two streams of income, three if you include the rental income, and then also sitting, probably working security. These online classes. So it was just sitting down and, well, why not do this? Why not try that? And it wasn't a strategy necessarily what I had. I know I wanted rental income so I could have less um, living expenses, but it became naturally intuitive, like, oh, this is also a good thing because now I'm not reliant on any one employer or any one stream of income.
Okay. All right. So you're when I listen to you, you're like a kind of like a weatherman, just talking about the times and what's going on. And a part of that, if you watch Aaron, to the audience, if you watch Aaron regularly, there's talk about the generations, particularly the
Mhm.
boomers.
Right.
And it impresses me. I mean, not all the boomers are bad,
Not all of
but
them. Not all of them.
you show little inhibition in laying the smackdown
I will even
on them.
clarify for you so you don't have to say it. I have an intense hatred of the boomers, and you have to prove to me otherwise that you are like, if you're a Vietnam vet and you served, or you like did that, I'm like, okay. But if I see you, it's like you got to prove yourself to me. But yes, I dislike that generation. Correct.
Well, I'm going to ask you why, but I was
Mm,
watching a special here. Uh, the, it showed them going to Woodstock and partying and basically unraveling society
yeah.
as it was. And I can, I'll just say this for my family, the thing that I run into is that they kind of expect our lives to be like theirs.
Hmm.
They have a set of values and expectations, which I guess every generation does.
Right.
But there's a lack of understanding of how the ground is shifted underneath us and how society has changed,
Hmm.
and that there are things that they just don't understand about today's world. But what are your gripes with them?
Mine are more economic. Like a comment, you got to understand where is it malicious, lazy, or ignorance? And an example of an ignorant lie is where your parents are trying to help you and say, you should go to college. Why? Because it worked for them. Or you should just be nice and be yourself. Why? Because it worked for Opie on the Andy Griffith show when he had a crush on Susie Q in that one episode or whatever it was. That no longer plays in today's modern economy or today's modern dating market, but they weren't trying to purposely mislead you. Then there's malicious lying where this is more common of my generation, where they will advance their religion or politics, typically more politics or politics serving as a religion, where you have to be vegan, you have to vote Democrat, sometimes you have to vote Republican. We know where they love their ideology more than they actually do love their child, and they give them misinformation or not even the choice to make their own choices that ends up in the long run being bad for the child. So that's malicious. But ignorant is where they, in their own personal lives, especially as it pertained to raising families, like they didn't study, they didn't look around and say, hey, wait a minute. And I think it's also a form of laziness combined with ignorance, where they just put no effort into raising their kids. A lot of people got divorced, they were ignorant. Oh, kids don't need their parents. Oh, the kids are resilient, they'll be fine. This is good for them, that kind of thing. And they're the first generation to basically love themselves and their careers more than their children. Now that trend has continued. It's not only the boomers that have done that, but if you look at divorce rates and how few parents actually raise their own children versus outsourcing them, that trend has continued on. But the boomers were the first to do it. And I would also say, culturally speaking, and well, you're my age, and you probably remember this, but you do you remember what's the one? Leave It to Beaver. Remember the TV show that'd be in
Mhm.
reruns? And I'm like,
Yep.
oh, you expect me to be June Cleaver? What do you think this is? Leave It to Beaver? It's like, no, but it should be that way. And how they mocked it. These were our teachers. These were the boomer teachers. If anything, it's not necessarily parents that have a disagreement, but teachers, where they set this expectation that the nuclear family, how square, how droll, how outdated, isn't that quaint? And so they misled my generation to mislead future generations about what really is important in life. And not even forget what's important from an existential point, what's important in terms of practicality. And so, and then today, the successive generations of parents are equally culpable in these regards, but the boomers were the first ones to do it. I remember, I remember they were the ones telling, don't trust anyone over 30. And you had to go back and think, like, wait a minute, don't trust the people that went through the Great Depression, fought World War II, fought Korea, currently fighting the current back then Cold War, who made the greatest country in the world in the history of. Don't trust those people. And so you look back at it and you realize these were just your proto SJW hippie work avoidant scum. Just people who didn't want to be responsible adults. And then, oh, we got kids. Oh, maybe no, we'll work because it's the 80s. We guess we have to. But that was the initial beginning of the decline. And so that's where they had it all. They had it all. And in one generation, they made it bring down to this, where now we got reverse mortgages. We're telling our kids, like, well, we're actually, it's not what you're telling your kids about their sexuality in school. It's that you're telling these kids about their sexuality in school when you just be shutting up and teach them reading, writing, and arithmetic. So that's where I have my main problems with the baby boomer generation is they were the worst stewards of American culture, society, and economy in the history of America.
Now, when you say if they had it all, are you saying they inherited homes from their parents, or
Well,
they?
yeah, they had nuclear families. They had low costs because there's production. You had, depends on what you want to call government intervention. They had nowhere near the government intervention. Therefore, they had much lower costs in terms of tuition. They had really good economy. It's a double the economic growth, generationally speaking, than what the current generation is facing right now. They had and the technology they received, and all the lessons, the wisdom that they had. Like, hey, we figured it out. Just keep doing this one thing, and they couldn't do it. So that's what they inherited. I mean, you might say 50s pop music wasn't the great. Okay, culturally there might have been some problems you might have had with no culture is perfect. But it was a pretty darn good society we had going on. And now it's forget culture or music or even if people are obese or overweight. As an economist, I'm like, we went from like, I'd have to look it up, but having a surplus around like 40-50% GDP. Now we got a national debt of 110% GDP. Like the fundamental finances are absolutely shattered, absolutely shattered. And so we are a mere fraction of our former American selves. And so but the people who led that charge and opened that Pandora's box was the baby boomers.
Interesting. Interesting. So I noticed you said stable families.
Mhm.
Oh, and you mentioned decline. So do you want to say a few words about your book, Enjoy the Decline? I didn't read that one.
Yeah, that was Obama got reelected, and I was a little younger then, and I was like, how did this guy get reelected? Like, did they not see the debt? Here I am thinking like everyone looks up GDP per capita and debt, deficits and all that. And I was like, if we keep going this way, this is not gonna, and my eyes were kind of open. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what society wants. Society wants free stuff. They want everything on easy mode. And if we put everything on easy mode, we get free stuff. We don't work and produce things anymore. And then that is now borne out. And so if you looked at even the fundamentals back then, and I was paying attention to Bush Jr. even, well, like, man, these debts are kind of getting a little out of hand here. Even with the war, George Bush was the biggest spender since Lyndon B. Johnson. Well, it has nothing to do with an R or a D in front of your name. And then Obama was the one who came in with Obamacare, printing off lots of money, truly in intellectual honesty to deal with the housing crisis at that point in time, but then also to be a free giveaway for student loans and all this other stuff. Then to be followed by Donald Trump, who printed off even more money. That is, my book ended up becoming vindicated, where I'm like, okay, here are the trends. These trends are not changing because Americans have decayed too much to take on personal financial responsibility, to work hard, et cetera, all these things that would make any economy or country great. And so what do you do as an American who wants to work hard, live their life, be an individual, enjoy life, and not necessarily the material things, but just be intellectually enjoying life? What do you do when your economy and society is in decay? And so that came out 2012, maybe. It was a while ago. Maybe it was even 10 years ago. But it has proven correct. All the trends I forecasted have continued on. And it's kind of, if you read it back then, it would have helped you be in a pretty good position now, mentally, psychologically, even financially. But yeah, that book, that was the premise of the book, and it has bore out rather well in the past 10 years.
Okay. So Aaron, you mentioned number 45. I know his name is a bad word for some people.
45. Oh, Obama?
No,
Bush.
44.
I thought you meant the
No, 45 president. Is Trump. 45 is Trump.
45 is Trump? Okay, all right, Trump. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so one of his selling points when he was running, or one of his campaign points was, I'm not going to say the 4-letter acronym because that's a bad word too, but basically I'm going to bring industry back. So as an economist, has that factored into this? The fact that we were outsourcing our manufacturing to other countries?
Yeah, some of it. I wouldn't say so much manufacturing, and we got to go way back. How far do you want to go back?
Well, I'm just thinking where everything kind of started coming off the rails.
It it didn't really come off the rails. It depends on what your view of fair trade is and what you want standards of living to be. With NAFTA, and going back to the Clinton days, where we're like, okay, we're going to import a lot of things. We're going to produce and basically do international trade. Generally, international trade is a good thing because other countries specialize and can make higher quality products at a lower price. So Switzerland's really good at making chocolates. Russia's really good at making vodka. America's good at making fighter planes. And it's like it's just basic 101 economics theory of specialization, except on an individual level, you do on a country level. And so that was the economic theory underpinning NAFTA and getting free trade and outsourcing stuff to China. Fundamentally correct. And it did drastically increase people's standards of living. If you don't believe me, go back to 1985. What did a color television cost? And it was that big. Ask what a color television costs now, adjusted for inflation. It's a fraction of the cost. Why? Because it's assembled in China. And so whereas different countries have different natural resources and talents and skills and people, resulting in different strengths and products that they make, what I don't know if people thought about it, but China has such a massive population, and they were so horrifically underutilized and underemployed, going back to the 90s, that I don't think anyone in the world imagined they'd essentially become the manufacturing neighborhood. They become the industrial neighborhood of your town or of the globe. And so everything was outsourced to them because you just can't compete. If you wanted to have a cell, I always thought, what would a cell phone cost if it was made by Americans? It'd be $4,000 and it wouldn't work, right? Because we lack the industrial technology and we require too high a labor. And China, for better or worse, pays slave wages essentially to their people. But it did rise and get. It's one of the greatest achievements of quasi-capitalism, if you call it that, where they got basically 1 billion people out of poverty, plus 3 generations. So it was a win-win for everybody. But where we might have lost a little bit of it, I would say, is the skilled, medium, not necessarily light, but medium to highly skilled professions, some of which is white collar work, where we would outsource stuff that could be done by Americans, but is now done by foreigners, for when you include quality issues, quality control, mistakes, and at the end of it, where you returns and all that, is on par. So, for example, we've outsourced a lot of outcalling to India, a lot of programming to India. There's no offense to the Indian community, but a lot of times, it's like you need an American without a thick accent to solve your problem very quickly. So customer service goes down. The quality of programming is not as good. You get an Indian over here in America, they program, they learn, they're very good. But you're like, oh, we'll just outsource it to India. Their programming quality is not that good, and now they have to reshore a lot of programming and software engineering type of jobs. Even Mexico, we don't make Levi jeans in the United States anymore. We don't make toilets in the United States anymore. That is, Mexico has taken on the maquiladora plants, but the quality has gone down. So now, and I remember I had to get toilets for my house. The guy says, I will not use anything except, I think it was American standard, because they're still made in the US and the ceramics don't break or something. They're more expensive, but you're not going to have that breakdown. So that's where the outsourcing has cost us, both in terms of jobs and GDP or standards of living, because of the broken window fallacy, where it's like, okay, we got this toilet, well, it breaks. And I don't know about you, but if you paid attention to your electronics, anything, machines, your cell phone, this stuff breaks a lot more regularly, as opposed to stuff that used to be made, albeit more expensively, in the United States. Now, where that balance is, do we want to bring back frigid air and start making refrigerators in the United States? Well, it's going to be cost prohibitive. There still is a cost advantage for developing foreign countries, where they benefit because the wages are very good for them and we get the cheap products at the end. But I do not believe outsourcing our higher productive processes, whether that is skilled engineering, light engineering, or software, because more things computer IT related. I don't think that is a good idea, because it just hasn't proven to be economic. And so whereas people, I know men are like, oh, well, we need manufacturing back. It's like, you're not going to beat the Chinese. You're not going to beat the Indians. You're not going to beat most of Asia, frankly, in terms of cost per labor. But if you want to bring back the manufacturing jobs, there's something very closely related, if not identical, and that is the trades. We are desperate for tradesmen. And so I know a lot of people, oh, they took all and they gutted out all the jobs. All right, they may have, and unions, by the way, unions, like, we're going to sit on our duff and complain and get fat. And then we're going to get Vinny over here and we're going to protest and shut down. They're just going to go to China. So that's another reason. But if you're looking to get back into an industrial type of job, we need tradesmen. We need truck drivers. We need linemen. We need electricians. We need welders. The opportunities have never been better. So that there's rarely an instance where there is no silver lining, and this is what in such in where there's a huge silver lining that we could do that. You could go ahead and go into the trades. So, but I do not believe we're going to bring back, factories, Michigan and Toledo. The Rust Belt is not going to be pumping out smoke, and we're assembling cars as much as we used to. The profits are just not there. We're going to go after higher end profit things like IT, software, innovations, medical stuff like that.
Okay, I want to come back to education, but before I do, in watching one of your shows, this goes to the media. So the media. What impressed me was you said, I don't listen to any of it, and so what happens is when you tell people, okay, I don't listen to CNN, I don't watch MSNBC, they say, okay, well then you must watch Fox. It sounds like you don't watch any of it.
Why? Look, you and I are the same age, right?
Yes.
Right. We're going to die roughly about the same age. So I estimate you and I got about 35, 40, if we're lucky, 45 years. I'm not wasting it watching Fox News saying that the sky could be falling. We could be going to a socialist hellhole. What am I going to do about it? I sure the heck ain't going to listen to Rachel Maddow with her fake glasses. No, I'm not. And so it's one of a mental health choice above anything else. I mean, I'd like to think it's philosophical. It's not. It's like, I'm in a worse mood watching the news. I don't control the news. And as you start to find out now with the internet, they skew the news to be bad to get clicks. So it's not that bad. You don't even know what the news is true or not. And and it's like, after a while, you start to realize the news in the United States for what it really is. And that is, it's just a continuation of the gossip of middle school. It's just older people doing middle school, except pointing out to other people in a different clique. Like, oh, Bobby, what is going on with Susie? And Susie said, no, I'm going fishing. I'm going for a hike. I got my solar panels. I bought my silver in case things go bad. I got my insurance. But once I have done these basic investment things and hedged against, and I got a skill or a trade and I got some tools, I am going to go and live life. And part of living life is not wasting your time on things you don't control and that ultimately put you in a bad mood, or removing yourself out of situations that are bad for you. And so that's why I don't watch the news.
Okay. I don't disagree with any of what you just said. I'm thinking back to during the last administration. I'll just say that my agency, we kept working, and I remember my mother calling me and saying, oh my God, are you okay? I heard that your agency is closing down, and are you all right? And I said, Mom, I'm fine. We're working. I got projects to work on. And I realized, okay, whatever she's watching is painting the most dire picture,
Right.
but it's not matching with my reality.
Right. Rarely does it match what's on the ground. And don't get me wrong, when I look up data, and that's what I used to do anyway as an economist, I get the data. I don't care what I don't need political analysts telling me what to think. I can go, and especially in the heyday of the internet where it was untainted and all that, you could get some great data. They were publishing it up, Federal Reserve database, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, OECD, ILO, all this data out there. And I just pull the data. I'm like, well, here it is. This is what's happening. And I know that person is lying, and that it's so when you have the data and the information, you got a more accurate representation of what's going on. But there is no godly reason to be watching the news right now, because it's not news, it's propaganda, and it's fake, it's fraud, it's fraudulent. I mean, there's a little bit of truth to it, but it's not going to help you at all. either in your mental health or your knowledge of the world. If anything, it's going to worsen both.
Yeah. I can personally attest to, um, I I gotten one of those Fire Sticks. My best friend said, "You need to get one of those Fire Sticks. I'm gonna send you one. Get rid of your traditional cable."
Mhm.
So when I got rid of my traditional cable, this was years ago, I stopped flipping to CNN and Fox because I would watch both to see try to
Yeah.
get something in the middle. And after turning both of those off, my mental state did
It
start to
it
clear up.
it's amazing what happens. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, go for a walk. Go hang out with your family. Some hang on. Onward, give me 1 second. I gotta do something real quick. Hang on.
All right. All right. I have more questions to ask him, but I gotta keep my eyes on the clock too. Okay.
I got my little portable heater on. It just kicks off like a furnace in here. And I was like, oh, I gotta turn it off. So
Okay, look at you with your Captain America shirt. You gonna go
Captain
see
America.
Wakanda Forever?
No. I I didn't see Captain America either. This is just a free shirt. That's all. I mean, girlfriend got it for me. Did
uh,
I ever tell you? Did I ever tell you the story about my um Alabama football hat?
no.
My dad goes to Alabama for winter and he gets me an Alabama hat, roll tide. I thought Auburn. So I'm wearing this hat and there's this old guy at the bar. He says, "Oh, roll tide." And I'm like, "Yeah, roll tide." He's like, "What do you think of Nick Saban?" I say, "Who's Nick Saban?" He's like, "You got an Alabama hat on." I'm like, "Oh, the hat. Yeah, my dad just got it for free. I don't watch the show or anything like that." And this guy was so let down that I just was, it's like blasphemy wearing this hat and I didn't know what it was. It's the same thing. Like that hat, the shirt I just took off I got that at Goodwill. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I did not see Captain America. I didn't see Winter Soldier. I saw Iron Man and Doctor Strange, and then the
Okay.
ending one. Yeah, the ending one, but
Okay.
I didn't see the Captain Americas.
Okay. Those were decent. Everything else after that, well, most of what was after the end game hasn't been very good.
Right, see, but that's another thing to ignore. I'm not gonna watch the news, and I'm not
Yep.
gonna watch obscure fourth-rate comic book superheroes trying to be for it's just the MCU is producing way too much, and I don't care.
Well, now it's in large part becoming propaganda.
Yeah.
It's well, you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I tune into the other geek shows like, It's a Gundam and The Critical Drinker
Critical
and
Drink.
just
Oh, I love
yeah,
him. I
yeah,
love him.
clear
Yeah, I love Film Threat too.
Film Threat?
Uh,
Okay, I'll
Film
have
Threat.
to find
Yeah,
okay.
and I
Well,
did
any
sub to World Class Bullshitters too. But
oh, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
those yeah,
yeah.
oh, I
Critical
remember when they
Drinker.
just started, yeah.
Yeah, he's probably
Um,
my favorite though. Critical Drinker.
yeah, so
Yeah.
but I'm like, I tune in and thank God these guys do the work for us because I don't waste 3 hours in the theater anymore.
Yeah.
And so yeah, once MCU started going really woke and all that, I'm like, nah, I don't need to see these anymore. So yeah, I hope they do well. I hope people tune in, but I got other things to do.
Okay. Salchi, thank you for the Cash App. If anyone else wants to donate, well, the Super Chat is live, and my Cash App and PayPal are here. So Aaron, so in your part of your stream earlier, you talked about education
Hmm.
and how just employment standards have become so insane. And then a few minutes ago, you said that we need um, there's a need for people to get into the trades. I
Hmm.
know that in my household growing up, it was college, college, college. But I was fortunate that I chose a STEM, but college is clearly not the magic bullet, especially if you choose the wrong major.
Right.
What's your? Because I had an uncle ask me last week to talk to his daughter about her college choices. How do you see the whole college landscape now? Is it just one big Ponzi scheme, or are there some majors still worth
Oh
majoring
yeah,
in?
no, there's some majors. I had to update. I forgot which book I was researching. So I had to go to the National Center for Education Statistics and look at the number and types of college degrees that were conferred. And basically 90% of degrees issued are pretty worthless. I mean, to varying degrees, but a sociology degree, pretty worthless. Business degree, pretty worthless, but not as worthless as say like art history. Marketing, HR is jobs for you, but still pretty worthless. But there's engineering, accounting, pharmacology, IT, computer networking, and things like that. So there is still degrees and programs worth attending in college. But for the most part, most college degrees being issued are they're not going to be of any benefit to your employment at all. It might give you a slight leg up in the application process. Oh, bachelor's required. But right now, there's such a shortage of labor for entry level jobs. You could start, McDonald's, $15 an hour, truck driver, things that don't require that much training. There's a lot more opportunities now to just go straight to work out of high school, or even while you're in high school, than there is to go to college. But in terms of like the situation your uncle finds himself in, I hope he watches this. I don't care how bad a return on investment college is for the average American student. I don't care how much more they charge and how much tuition prices are going up. They are not going to give this up because this is basically the only thing high school age kids get to look forward to. It's kind of like their birthright. And until you have a parent or an elder or someone that actually cares about them and say, look, here's the deal. You're going to spend 4 years of your life and this much money going and earning, in college. It's got to pay off. And depending on how involved or uninvolved the parents are with their children, the children are going to go with what their teachers and the media and the government and the current information was follow your heart and the money will follow. And they also aren't even going to look at a college degree. They're looking at the college experience. This is like a wedding for a woman but it's a 4-year. I'm trying to think if there's ever, well, you're talking about Butillions. They're like,
Cotillions,
yeah, they're like a coming of age, like a
cotillions,
quinceañera.
debutantes. Yep.
Right. So this is like a 4-year process, a truly American experience where like, oh, now I'm an adult and I'm an intellectual. They're never giving up that experience, even if the joke is a laughable degree, because it's a consumer good that they're going after, not an investment. And until basically that consumer good is removed, like, okay, you can go to college, but if you're majoring in these things, you don't get any government help. That's fine. Go have your dream in the field. Go to some Middlebury college and imagine you're intelligent. Until we eliminate that, these kids are going to keep going to it because that's their dream. That's for many people. Think about this, Anwar. This is how sad it is. For many people, that is the peak of their life. Those are the best days of their life. Because after that, they're financially crippled, they're unemployable, they have a warped sense of work ethic or no work ethic at all that prevents them from becoming industrious, hardworking, successful, or just simply practical and empirical. And then they live the rest of their lives poor, impoverished, and angry because what they were promised in college never manifested. So for many people, college is the peak, which is sad, very sad. But there's no way to unplug these young people like your niece. It was your uncle's
Cousin.
daughter? Is your
Yeah,
cousin?
yeah.
Okay, I had to do the math. Your cousin, unless he gets in there and has a come to Jesus meeting and an intervention, like, you cannot do this. This is going to ruin you. It's unlikely that this is going to change. And so I try to reason and implore with people within my audience and anyone that comes in, like, hey, look, you gotta make these 4 years count. And we do get some people to make the right choices. I think young boys, young men are kind of leaning a little bit more towards that. But we're still, the vast majority of people major in dumb stuff. And so I tried stopping that train. I just got smashed. So that train's going off the bridge, whether we like it or not. It won't be until there's a horrific disaster are we going to really do
Well,
anything about it.
I would agree with you in that when you're in high school, you're not seeing life after college. You're seeing them
Right.
going. Well, and the schools, they're pretty good at marketing. If you watch any Michigan game, they're selling it. Every game
Yeah.
they're selling it. And you're seeing all the kids in the stadium and all the gear and it's like a frenzy. You just want to go. You want to be part of the party.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether that's a PWI or HBCU or whatever,
Mhm.
whatever. You want to go be a part of the fun. You want to say that you've experienced college.
Wait, I'll parallel it for you here. Do you remember like the allure and the mystery when we were in high school of a nightclub? Like, oh man,
Yes.
that's a hot nightclub. Look at all the people. And I'm not
Oh
21. I
yeah.
can't go. And like, and then maybe there was one that had an 18 plus night and you go and you're like, this is weird. It's kind of loud and annoying. And then you got to the 21 nightclub and all it is was just a bunch of people listening to really loud music, even smoking back in the day. If you can remember that, I remember walking out smelling like a chimney sometimes. And then you think like, was that it? Is that all there is? Yes, that's all there is. But until you go into that nightclub and see all it is a bunch of loud drunk people and girls shooting down guys, more or less, you're going to think that that's the cool thing. That's where it's going to be. Not until you go several times, you realize that's a waste of time. Thankfully, a nightclub is going to cost you $20 to get in, maybe let's say 50 for a night. And so you're out $50. But college, it's still the same allure. Like, oh my gosh, look, all these smart kids. And Anwar, what are they all gonna do? What do they all tell these kids they're gonna do?
When they get there, or when
When you
they're gonna
get
get
to
a job.
college and you get your degree, you can go out and
Live your dream, or do whatever you want,
live
or
your dream,
your dream.
change the world, make a difference. It's like, dude, make some money. Just support yourself. And so there's no. What we're trying to do is sell broccoli to little children instead of chocolate ice cream. And there ain't no way you're going to sell or convince a kid to eat the broccoli over the ice cream. And so I kind of leave it as is because I've tried my best, but their purpose and value in life is so entwined with college. I would even say spiritually, certainly existentially, because there's nothing else to do. Psychologically, because it's what you've been conditioned to do. Uh, Purposely, because you got nothing else going on. But even spiritually, like, oh, I'm going to this college, I'm going to that, and I'm part of, and I'm going to cheer on the whoever, the Wisconsin Badgers. We're going to go to the pep rally, and I'm like, yeah, you should be learning to program C#. But there's no unlodging those kids from that dream, and so
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. It's just going to continue on.
Or join a fraternity or a
Yeah,
sorority.
yeah, sir, it's a sorry,
Yeah,
pledge. Yeah.
yeah. I know that in my household, both my parents were college educated, so that was a really, really big deal
Mhm,
for us to go to college.
mhm.
I know things have changed since then, but I do recall that was a big deal. And then if you don't finish, or if you don't go, sometimes you get shamed for that. I'm not going to mention anyone in particular, but that that happens. And I think it's also, if I were talking to a young person, I would talk to them about what their gifts are, because they might be good with their hands, they might be good with building things, they might be good with
Mhm,
not necessarily sitting and studying. And I mean, sitting and studying are necessary for most things, but that's not the only route. That's what I'm saying.
mhm.
And it's in large part, as you described earlier, it's in large part being sold as the only route.
Right, right. And there's no unless you have parents involved somewhere who are more in tune with the realities of today's modern labor market, you're not gonna have that you're just gonna send them off to the schools, the K through college, K through 12, and their career counselor is gonna give them the same advice, "Follow your heart, money will follow," when in reality, you say, "Hey, look, kid, you're at best a C minus student, but you do really good on geometry and algebra. Why don't you go into carpentry because you're going to make $40 an hour after 2 years because you're good at measuring and doing the math on that regard, but you just cannot sit indoors." But there's there's not there's not enough alternative ideas within the K through 12 education system to be that robust or open-minded or even what's the word I'm looking for? Aware of the different opportunities outside the college track.
Mhm. Fauci says if someone isn't attending a top 10 university, simply attend a state college, but attend a community college during your high school years.
Mhm.
Just quickly, you're an economics guy. I know Salchi's he's in the banking industry. A business management degree, is that worth anything?
No, no, no.
Okay, okay, okay.
I mean, so look, anyone blind squirrels finding acorns. All right, yeah, it happens. There, someone wins the lottery, but a management degree is not a skill. business schools are horrible. There's no reason you should go to business school except for two things: accounting and MIS. And if you're going MIS, you might as well be going tech. You might as well computer science or something else.
MIS stands for
management information systems. You're going to become the IT guy. You do computer networking, security, VMware, stuff like that. But accounting is a real skill. Marketing, it's not a real skill. HR, not a real skill. General management, absolutely not a real skill. Now they're offering diversity and inclusion. I mean, you want to talk about taking somebody's money and running. That is not a skill. You need an actual skill, especially nowadays. And even finance, my degree, I've said this, not a skill. I mean, it helps with your personal finance, not a skill. You need accounting. They need accountants. They don't need finance people. That's done by computers now. So business degrees are particularly slippery because you're like logical. Well, this makes sense. We run businesses. You need that. No, you either get a skill or you go home. And so an accounting degree is a great business degree to have. And then you could still go work in business, but you're not going to be unemployed or, working as a salesman at the Verizon cell phone store.
okay.
MBA, no. Okay, MBAs, no. You're in IT. If your company pays for it, yes. All right. If they're going to pay for it, fine. But an MBA, there's nothing in an MBA that is not common sense. I think MBAs are on the way out. And if you already have a degree in IT, again, if they pay for it, you're gainfully employed as it is right now. And the only way you get an MBA is if your employer says do it. But that's even your larger corporations. I think the younger, more nimble companies are not even requiring MBAs. But yeah, an MBA is a waste of time. I wouldn't do it.
Okay. So, okay, I want to move on to something else, but before we go, Aaron, what do you make of the whole the student loan forgiveness business?
It's theft.
I don't understand how
it's theft.
Well, I don't understand how this works. I don't understand all the zeros. I don't understand how all this is getting paid for. It's like a bottomless pit. Whatever our government's doing and all the things we're paying for. It's like
right.
I don't understand.
It's theft. They took our money, right? The government, because government loans. It depends. It could be some private lenders in there. It could be loans from long ago, issued by banks and other lending institutions. But more modernly, it's federal government. So they took our money, right? And they say we're not giving back the money. And then people want to do debt forgiveness. Says it's all right. So that's how it works. It's just billions or trillions of dollars actually, and it's spread across millions of people. So that's all it is. Yeah, I don't care how they dress it up. Oh, we got to start my favorite is like, well, then I can finally start a business. It's like, look, lady, you can't even pay back your student loan debts. You ain't running no business. All right. You're not going to start a business. All right. Please don't. You're going to more debt and file for bankruptcy. So it's just lazy, stupid people who are amoral, immoral, and are perfectly fine taking other people's money. That's all it is.
Okay. The last part of my questioning is going to involve gender.
Right.
So I'm sure some people are going to perk up when I ask you what I'm going to ask you. But what's happening now with the inflation and there's more money floating around than goods and services? Aaron, what do you, as an economist, what do you foresee? Is this going to go on for another 2 years, 3 years?
It's going to go on forever because no, but people think economics is hard. It's really not. Did we print off the money?
Yes.
Yeah, we did. Okay. Now, unless we destroy the money or take it out of circulation and lower the money supply, we have permanently increased prices. Now, we could debate, when is it going to stabilize? Like, when do we find a new normal of prices? And that I don't know. The rate of increase in inflation is slowing down. It's called disinflation. They came up with this euphemistic word. It means like, well, instead of 12% inflation, it's 11%. Isn't that great? You're only 11% poorer this year. So the rate of inflation is going down, but it's inflation where prices are still going up. So it's going to take a while, and I don't have any expertise in the velocity of money, let alone in which sectors of the economy money transacts and inflates fastest or further or quicker. But if we stop printing off money, there will come a point in time there would be a 0% inflation rate, assuming our economy keeps growing, or prices would stabilize a little bit. If I had to guess, I think we got at least another 10 years to go, if we don't print off any more money. Because keep in mind, starting with George Bush, Jr., he didn't do a lot, but he did start the money printing press. Obama increased it almost 400%. Trump went another, I have to look up a 400% on top of that. And Biden, I haven't really, it went up a little bit, but we have printed off a lot of money. Now, the Obama dollars plus Bush, that has largely increased the cost of housing. Housing was at oh my gosh, housing, it's low, and and that increased during Obama and Trump's administration. So your cost of housing has gone up. The stock market cost of investing has gone up. Everyone celebrates when housing prices go up and stock prices go up, but you shouldn't, because especially if you're younger now, lodging is more expensive and investing is more expensive. And now we're starting to see it in consumer goods, especially when we printed off money to pay people not to work during the lockdowns. So we had a decrease in the amount of stuff we're producing. We increased the money supply 3 or 4-fold. Again, I'd have to look up the numbers. People are shocked that a burger costs $16 now, or that gas is $4 or $5. So if you look at the lag, when we really started printing off money and when we started seeing it hit different price, it will hit the financial assets a little bit quicker than consumer prices, but consumer prices ended up going up anyway. And so now I think that's just it's going to take about another 10 years to digest, assuming we don't print off any more money, which we're going to. So I just expect an inflationary environment for the short and medium term.
Okay. All right. So now I'm going to shift for this final discussion. Hopefully we can do this again. Let's talk about how men and women are relating today. And are you familiar with Nicholas Eberstadt?
No.
Okay. So he's another writer that I've discovered on YouTube who is talking about the male crisis.
Mm.
Dr. Warren Farrell's written about the boy crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Jordan Peterson is talking about this as well. So there are a lot of people looking around and seeing that the way men and women are relating to each other now is vastly different than it was 50 years ago. So for those of you who are hearing this for the first time, this might sound a little bit sobering because they're not talking about this. Our political
you're not crazy. You're not losing it. Yeah.
Yeah. The mainstream media is not talking about this. Our political class is not talking about this, but people on the ground level are starting to talk about this. You're pretty outspoken about the fact that I'll let you describe it, but your position is women don't, or females are not interested in men today.
Right. Or I'm pretty convinced it's not today, but I think generally women biologically and sociologically were never that interested in men to begin with. Not because of modern day politics or anything like that. And you kind of already see this. Women are only fractionally interested in sex as men. You know, the many funny jokes from many years ago about, jokes of a husband and wife or something like that. So we know women only have a fraction of the sex drive that men have. But what I'm starting to see, or what I saw with a lot of my data, not to mention my own dating experiences, you always think it's bad luck. Like, what am I doing? What's wrong? What's it? And when you start to look back and compare notes and you look at macro data, macro behavior data on a nationwide level, it becomes pretty clear to me that women, at least today, are nowhere near as interested in men as women were in the past. And a lot of that comes from polling data. You ask, well, what do you want in life? Men are 6th, and I think children are 7th. Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter came out with the rise of the she economy, where half the women are just under half are forecasted not to be married. You ask women, they prefer career, education, financial stability, religion, I think, or finding themselves or something like that over marriage and children. And a really kind of the many final nails in the coffin that kind of did for me was we now have a bevy of online dating data which is always kind of a changing target because online dating has morphed and changed so much. But when you take all this data and you put it together, it's a pretty clear picture that women do not have that much interest in men as men do women. I'm not saying women don't like guys. I'm not saying women hate men. I'm not saying that. Women are only fractionally as interested in men. And what the catalyst has been, whereas I say, I think it's been that way all the time, is that we have now removed the requirement to have a man in your life. Very recently, in the grand scheme of human development and evolution, women didn't. You needed a guy. You needed a husband. He would make the food. He protect the household. There was no welfare state, and culturally speaking, women weren't prohibited from working outside the home, but it was shunned. It was tisk a little bit. There was you would really, you're working? What's wrong? Well, what's wrong that you're working? Don't you have a husband? Well, now two things have come along: is technology allowing people to do predominantly white collar work. So women, you don't have to be physically strong to work. So now women could do accounting and engineering and programming and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we have a welfare state where, okay, you don't have a job or you fall on hard times, you get WIC, women, infants, and children. You get EBT, you get Section 8, you get welfare, and the plethora of different state and local programs that help single women or single moms. And women do not need anymore. And they literally told us this. They told us this starting in the 60s and 70s. And as a little kid, I didn't understand. But I had teachers telling me, we don't need men anymore and women can do it. Blah, blah, blah. And again, I remember, man, I'm 6 years old. I'm like, what? Okay. And now in hindsight, I see it, especially when you remove your desire and your the male sex drive from your psyche. You just take a look at it empirically. You're like, wow, if women really like men, that might just be a completely different, completely different outcome. And so that is where I think a lot of the demoralization and the lack of men's participation, not all of it, but a lot of it comes from, is that women are not only not interested in men, but they don't need men anymore. And this big point, purpose, existential call and reason to live in life, getting married, having kids, working to support the family, has been removed at least for half the marrying age population. I'm not talking older people. I'm talking people who have futures or about to have a future. So that has fundamentally changed not only dating and romance and marriage, but if you look at labor production, men produce the majority of what I call real GDP. I'm not inflation adjusted, but okay, I'm sorry, ladies, if you have your journalism degree and you're blogging, that's not GDP. If I have the choice between reading your article on Boldy or having electricity in my house provided for me by Jim the electrician, I'm going with Jim the electrician. So there's not only a men skew towards the critical, important factors, industries of economic production, but also without kids, men only work a fraction of what married men with children do. Married men with children work a lot more, they work a lot harder, whereas single guys like me, we just a fraction of the effort, which means a fraction of the economic production. So this has huge economic consequences for this country and other developed countries going forward.
So a couple of things. So for the people watching this, before you go and hit that misogyny button,
Take it out on me.
We're talking economics, and no, this is a people are writing about this. Scholars are writing about this. Economists are talking about this. Going back to the boomers, a lot of the boomers are looking and they're wondering, okay, how come people aren't pairing up? How come there's less procreation? And even my folks, my mother, when I go home, insists we need each other. Men and women need each other. We're not meant to be by ourselves.
No, we're not. But
it's kind of like we're kind of living in different worlds, because they don't know any of what's going on.
Right. Well, they're from a different era, and
Yeah.
traditionalism was more the mainstream back then. But I mean, now your folks sound like they're still married. But I mean, if
No.
boomers and they're not okay. It's like, well, what, you got divorced? See, that's interesting. Your mom keeps asking because my folks know not to ask. Because they know, because they got
Well,
divorced, we went through hell. It's just like, no, we're not going to have kids. I could barely afford it. What do you mean the
well,
kids?
Aaron, that does happen in some families that I guess there are these idealistic hopes for identifying somebody that I would stay with for the entirety of my life. So maybe my children will, and
Hmm.
maybe they'll do better than we did, or but yeah,
It's
no,
nice to
they're not.
wish. You know, I wish Selma Hayek would show up at my front doorstep a little tipsy and ready to make bad decisions, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Mhm.
Yeah, it would be nice, and this is what we've been programmed to do for hundreds of thousands of years. But you cannot ignore what women through their behaviors and even their words have told us what they wanted. And it's not guys. It really isn't. Now they will settle, of course, for a top tier guy. You put Ryan Reynolds in front of any girl, I'm sure, or Hugh Jackman. But in terms of like your rank and file, GI Joe comes back from World War II and he's going to be a plumber or a welder at the local factory. Um, uh, Ethel would be happy to have him because he was the guy who came back town, and Herbert or whatever his name was very reliable. Now, women have choice, and I'm very libertarian in this, and plus I'm not typing. I'm not going to force, women we got to settle them down. We got to, like, no, if you want to get married, get married. If you don't want to get married, don't get married, that kind of thing. But when you look at the behavior, that's nice for any of the elder boomer ladies who are listening. You'd like your sons to have grandchildren out of our hands. It's not like a lack of, I almost guarantee if any elderly and Anwar's mom listening, I guaranteed you we asked out a lot of girls. We asked out a lot of girls and we got shot down a lot. And we thought we were crazy. We changed our tactics. We did this, we did that. And no, even in the 90s, it was kind of like, is this harder than I think it should be? But especially now, and that's where most of my focus is people under 40. It's a bloodbath. There is very little interest on the part of women in men, and you see men kind of waking up. I know the male sex drive is very strong, but honestly, I think their Darwinistic Maslow biology to survive and just get by is starting to kick in, where they do the calculus and the cost benefit analysis, and like, I got to do what, all this to maybe get a date, and they're going to the easier route, which is not working, watching porn, playing video games, and stuff like that. So both men and women are leaving the dating, courtship, marriage market, and consequently, we're going to have fewer people. So future economic production is going to go down there, but also without women to invigorate or inspire men, along with children, the economic production for this generation is going to go down.
Okay, so two things there for the folks who are hearing this for the first time. So I think this is a part of the immigration discussion that
Mhm.
they're not talking about. The two other economists I talked to, they basically said, yeah, this our economy, it needs bodies.
We do.
So if the people in the country are not reproducing, those bodies have to come from somewhere. So let's
Right.
import them. Let's bring them in, whether
Right.
legally or illegally. So
Mhm.
um, that's something our political class is not talking about. They're just saying bring bodies here.
They're
Let
bringing
them come.
bodies here, and a more accurate. Let's explain something though. It's okay if your population shrinks. That's perfectly all right.
Okay.
Your GDP goes down, but now your GDP per capita, because your number of people, or your standards of living don't go down just because your population shrinks. It's up to the individual people. Well, how much do they produce? So if everyone works hard and studies hard, okay, the population dropped by 20%. But if you produce uh 25% as much, well, then your standards of living go up. And also, in a contracting population, these people will inherit more of the capital and financial assets of the passing on generation in the form of inheritance, and so you'll have a bigger house. You'll have a higher square footage per capita. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. The problem is we have a welfare state, and it is financed by people who are working today to pay for people who are collecting today who contributed yesterday. This is the drawback of having a Ponzi scheme finance. That's not speculation. I'm not being, who's the guy? The frogs are gay. Who was that guy? The conspiracy guy. He's very loud and angry. It's not conspiracy. We have a Ponzi method of taking new people's money to pay off the old people. And so that's why we have to have bodies, immigrants or not, because who's going to pay the taxes for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, which is multiple trillions of dollars a year. And so that's why I think the politicians are very concerned, because we need to have people come in and work to generate the tax revenues, not to mention the production, so that the government checks being issued can go and buy something. It's not just a government check. That's where they're concerned about that. But if we either had a pay-as-you-go system like a balanced budget, or you have a welfare state, this would not be a problem. You just have less people next year than you did the year before. But since Japan faces this even more severely than we do, I think Italy as well. But you look at those countries; they're facing the same problem, and it's because we didn't pay for what we wanted. Again, you another reason 827. I don't like the boomers. It's like, wait, you voted for all this stuff, and now we got to pay for your Social Security? No, so there's nothing wrong with a declining population. That's fine as long as your economic growth per capita continues. But when you have a welfare state that is financed by generational debt, now you got a problem, and now you got to increase the population. And I don't think the immigrants realize how they're kind of being hoodwinked here. Like, oh, America, they're great. No, you're coming in here to be the slaves of the previous generation. You're coming here to pay the taxes. That's why you're coming here. So it's very interesting if you kind of look at it that way and do just a little bit more economic analysis on what's going on.
Okay, that's interesting. I haven't heard that that take on it before. That a shrinking population isn't necessarily bad.
Let me ask you this. Let me point it out this way. There's two families, right? There's your family and the family next door. Both parents work the exact same job. They each make $250,000 a year. Pretty fancy family, all right? You're the only child. They got a family of 7 children. When it passes on, who's going to be rich and wealthy? You are. See, that's it. So the shrinking population isn't necessarily bad.
Okay.
I know I'd have a lot more Christmas presents if my siblings weren't around. I would have had a lot more. Yeah, would have been good. Good.
Okay. Well, the other part of this is you've talked about this, and I think Mr. Eberstadt, he was kind of hesitant. Well, yeah, he was kind of hesitant to say this, but you've come out and say it, that if you take a woman's companionship away, you're also taking away most men's willingness to get up and go to work.
Right.
So that's for most men, that's the purpose. So
Right.
if you take that away, then you're going to get a whole population of men who don't want to work and who don't care to go to work.
Right. No, and I liken it to, like, men are the economic engines of the economy. We're the engines of the economy. We produce the disproportionate percentage of growth. And a question is, how much fuel and what grade of fuel are you going to put in? Are you going to put any fuel in? We don't need no man. Okay, well, men are not incentivized to go to work. Or if you do put in some fuel, is it 103 octane, or is it 67 octane with a truly, unfeminine woman who, comes with a bunch of debt or something like that? It's an unfortunate, politically incorrect observation, but I have no problem saying it. Look, why would a guy go to war right now? Why would a guy go to work? I am not getting out of bed to go to war for Lizzo or any one of the other gals that are out there. Like, I'm not going to get an MBA. I'll go deliver papers. Maybe you put Selma Hayek up there, I'll go to war, son. You put Jennifer Aniston or something up, but I'll go. What do you want me to do? Computer programming? You want me to build a house with my bare hands? I'll do it. And that's just the nature of the male sex drive and male sexuality. But yeah, it's kind of like you're starting to see. I don't know. Well, you're in Michigan. Do you own the house or you rent or
Well, I live in the Washington D.C. area. I went to
Washington
Michigan.
D.C.? Okay, you just cheer for Michigan. All right. Wintertime comes and you'll see wasps and other insects like get really lethargic and slow. And it's because there's less sun, there's not as much heat, and they're dying. That's what they're doing. But it's at that point in time, it's less sun, and they go into a stasis. They're not as energetic, and it's the same thing. People need, or the insects need sun. They need food, but if they don't get that, they start to go into a catatonic state where they're only about as 50% as active. Without good-looking gals who are nice and feminine and kind and sweet, guys are just going to shut down. This is why when whatever the World War II, the poster gal, Rita Hayworth, or I don't think Marilyn Monroe was back that long ago, but they sent Anne Margaret to Vietnam. They didn't send Eleanor Roosevelt. All right, they sent Anne Margaret. They sent a pretty gal. I know that's not great news. I know people don't want to hear it, but that's what incentivizes men. And so now, if you look at younger ladies and younger boys too, although I would say they're reacting to it, go look at Playboy, go look at the Sports Illustrated. There's no good looking girls anymore. Female beauty is not celebrated. If anything, it's shunned and shamed. And so that is really killed the sun in a lot of young men's days, and they're just going to kind of a catatonic state, or a kind of a semi-hibernative state, especially when it comes to economic production.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, and we're almost done. If you have a population of men not working, that's another population that the government has to pay for, right?
Right. Yeah.
To sustain and to
Yeah.
give health care.
Right. Lodging, crime, you have to deal with them. Some of them might get pissed off and commit some crime, and now you got to deal with them by spending money on the legal system, cops, and the prison system. Yeah.
Okay. And this was going on before the pandemic.
Mhm.
Before everybody was sent home, this whole thing was kind of
Yep.
taking root.
Male labor force obesity rates are going up. Male labor force participation rate is going down. The number of hours men and women are working is going down. But more importantly, it isn't economics, but it leads to economics, and the fact that it leads to having more humans who are going to have to produce the GDP of the future. If men don't ask women out, that means less kids being born into the future, which means less workers, which means less GDP, which means less of an economy. And so you look at men; they are in some parts. I don't think they do the economic. They don't have a spreadsheet. Oh, this is a horrible. I'm not going to ask girls out. This doesn't pay. They're cowardly, they're afraid, they don't have their dads. Like, you got to get out there and get rejected, son. They don't know how to talk to girls. And then you throw on top of it the ideological sprinkles or jimmies you add to this Sunday of feminism, and you literally tell men you don't need them. These guys are not going to ask women out, or they're going to ask out a mere they're going to not pursue women. And women, which according to my theory, never had that much interest in the guys anywhere, are kind of okay with that. And they're only going to go out with guys that are exceptionally attractive, exceptionally successful. And if so, they're probably going to meet on the internet through various dating apps and things like that. So there is no dating going. I mean, there's dating going on, but nowhere near as much as it was, like, say, in the 80s or 90s, like that. Men and women are getting together less. They're having sex less. There's been a significant spike in the sexless rate among younger people. So the men and women are definitely disengaging from each other, and resulting in not only an immediate drop in economic production, at least on the men's side, but it's definitely going to have an effect when the replacement generation is supposed to come there, and there is no replacement generation.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess. And again, for someone who's never heard this before, I imagine this is pretty sobering, but this is what's going on. And
Well, and all I ask is, is that what you see in the real world? I mean, you don't have to agree with me, but would it explain the phenomena and what you're witnessing in the real world? And I think for a lot of younger people, it probably does.
Mhm. Well, Aaron, I think that segues nicely into my last question. This is very open-ended.
Hmm.
What do you see with everything that's going on with what we just talked about? We just had these midterms two nights ago. What do you see the future of this country being?
Oh, it'll be inflationary. I think people are just going to decay further, both financially, mentally, and physically. I think go to Walmart. You like the people at Walmart? Well, that's going to be your rank and file people here pretty soon. I don't see women having an incentive to go out with men. I don't see them coming back to the dating market table. I see men further retreating into minimalism or non-participation within society. I think there will be a select group of people, thanks to the internet, who are going to like, whoa, wait, I can work this way, I can do this thing, and they're going to be highly compensated because someone has to keep the lights on. And with this lack of labor, both on the part of men and women, those who show up to be your tradesmen, your linesmen, your computer programmers, your surgeons, there's gonna be a further bifurcation or a uh, for once, I actually think the rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer. That is a lie. It's the rich get richer and the poor get richer. That is what it's been. It's just the people don't get as rich as the rich do. But I think that's going to change. I think that there is going to be people getting poorer and poorer and poorer in real terms because of inflation, but because there's not enough people who are going into STEM and accounting and trades and all that, those guys and gals are going to make a lot of money. And we're going to see a declining population. We will try to patch it up with immigrants, but the immigrants take like a generation to adapt. And here's the other thing, because you come from a conservative country, whatever, Muslim, I don't know, the old school Soviet, something like that. The father and mother, no, you send a kid to the public schools. Guess what? They too now are like, oh yeah, I might like girls or I might like guys. I identify as a penguin. I'm gonna go major in sociology and save the world. And they're not producing. They become Americanized and no different than the native population. So yeah, it's just going to be a further decay in every regard of the population. We're going to have more debt. We're going to put off more money. Things are going to get a lot more expensive. Our solution will be to print off more money, make things free, and then girls are going to say, "Why do all the guys live at home and on the welfare?" And it's a Scooby-Doo mystery. I don't know. And then hopefully the electricity is on long enough, and then I die. And maybe I'll watch some Bugs Bunny cartoons in the nursing home, and that's about it. That's kind of my life trajectory where I think the U.S. is going.
Okay, all right.
I didn't say I was
Well,
happy. This isn't going to be the happy hour. I'm just
we
saying.
wrote a book called "Enjoy the Decline."
Yeah, well, I just wish I was wrong, and I'm not. And so I'm like, oh, I'm really have to do this stuff, don't I? All right, here we go. So, but yeah, but this puts an emphasis on the mental part, minimalism, having good people in your lives, having a good skill or a trade, not making bad choices. And I think those people obviously are going to come out way better. You can still enjoy the life, but what you traditionally wanted, ladies, if you wanted a husband and kids, it's just not going to happen. It just isn't. And guys, if you wanted this beautiful woman, I mean, anything's possible, but you shouldn't sacrifice your finances and your production and your happiness and your pursuits in the pursuit of that. So yeah, just kind of reel in your expectations so you're not living a delusional life, and that's the best way to kind of manage this.
Okay. Well, one gentleman here, Maxwell Excellence, says, "Appreciate you, Aaron. Will sub to your channel." Yeah, Aaron.
Thanks,
Aaron
Max.
goes hard every day, multiple times a day. I would
And
love
I
to
don't
get
have a
He's on
choice.
again. He's on again.
Yeah.
He's on again.
My dad, he's like so confused yet proud. He's like, people they send you money and ask you questions. I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, but you're an idiot. I'm like, thanks, Dad. Thanks for the vote of confidence, man. Yeah, but it's kind of 3 or 4 a day. They're coming in fast and they're coming in hot. But that's what I got
Well,
to
when
do.
your day at the office is the Vista here,
Mhm.
you know, you can Do what you want.
Yeah,
Because
but I still have to do the request. They pay me. There's
that's
still
true. That's
people.
true.
It's not like I just show up and drink and then I go run around doing flips in my yard and eating ice cream. It's like, no, people pay me. I have an obligation. There is work involved, but I thought this was going to be kind of a little side something, and now it's like it's full-time work. It's just a lot of people out there with the wrong information. So,
Yep.
but
Yep.
yeah, it beats banking. I'll tell you that.
Okay. Well, Aaron, that's all I've got. Do you have any parting words? Thank you for coming here and hanging out.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Anwar. You're not a dude, bro. You're a good man. You could cheer. You
Thank
could
you.
cheer for
Thank you.
football. That's all right. You could cheer. That's all right. And then yeah, I would say the only thing I could tell people is that y- try to put humans. Find some good people in your life. Ideally, be a nice, beautiful woman, but just find some good people in your life, and you'd be amazed how politics kind of goes away and all this other stuff kind of goes away. So if you're looking for something to invest in, get some good friends, get a good job. Hopefully, you find yourself a nice lady out there, but don't put your hopes on it, and things will be on. What are Aaron's
Yeah,
thoughts about living?
Salchi says, yeah, what are Aaron's thoughts about living off 50% post-tax income and saving slash investing 50%?
Yeah, I mean, if you can do it, depends on what your income is and where you live, what your cost of living are. Yeah, but that's a fire, early retirement extreme, a great book written by Jacob Lund Fisker. He's probably maybe even read it or referencing it, but yeah, if you can earn that much income, absolutely. And then have your hobbies be something that don't cost money. You can enjoy a good life and retire early.
Well, Salchi is a money guy. He's
Mhm.
in the financial sector, and one of the things that he said, which is interesting, is that middle class now is not 100,000. It's 100. Well, I guess depending upon where you live,
Mhm.
it's 170. Salchi, you can put that number there in the chat, but
I'm
it's not
imagining it's household income, not individual income. I think that's household income.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's the other thing, Aaron. There's uh, a fascination with six figures,
Mhm.
right? And there's a segment of the population that thinks as soon as they make six figures, they've arrived. But
No.
depending on where you live, depending
Yeah.
on what your debt is, and what your lifestyle is, that money might not go very far.
Right, right. Until recently, I didn't really make much more self-employment wise more than 50,000 a year. And here's the thing that my house is practically paid off. I have very little. The mortgage is the only thing I got. Um, I get to run around and hike and do what I want because I spend less than I make. It's not how much I make; it's the fact that you make fun of me. My girlfriend got me this shirt. I didn't pay for it. These pants, hand me downs from her brother or her baby brother that grew up, and I fit into his pants. That's not a welfare shirt. That's a Goodwill shirt. I got a truck that's like 19 years old. All right. You don't need the money, guys. It's really, if I make a quarter million, no, spend less. And that's what's going to set you free. And sooner than you making a quarter million, you control how much you spend. You don't 100% control how much you make.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, well, that's all I've got here. Thank you, Aaron.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me. So, and then I'll go plug this over on the old interwebs, and yeah, hit me up anytime.
Oh,
And
he says it's 153K for an individual before the pandemic. So
really,
I guess that's the new
wow, for
middle
the
class.
individual,
I
yeah.
guess.
Well, that's very pricey. I'd have to look at the I haven't done research or watched
But
news in a long time, but
yeah, but we're east of the Mississippi here on the on in one of the eye of the storm.
Mhm.
So that's got to be different in Middle
South
America.
Dakota, yeah,
South
things are a
Dakota.
little cheaper, just a little
Yeah.
bit. So cool. Well,
Okay.
thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right. Appreciate that,
All right,
Aaron.
see ya.
Talk to you soon. Bye. All right, everyone. That was Aaron Clarey, Captain Capitalism, America's older brother. I think that was his other name, author, and he's an author and an economist. And I, as an aspiring author myself, I want to talk to more authors and hang out with more authors. And talk with the economists because they rely on data and not just feelings and gut feelings and stories passed down from generation to generation. So I'm going to stop this here. Thank you for those of you who watched. If you're watching on the playback, please like, share, and subscribe. Aaron said he would share this over his network. Hopefully he does. I could always use more subs. Please consider joining my newsletter. That is here. This is below in the description box. There's a 2-paragraph greeting. And then there is a subscription button there at the bottom. October was a busy month. I didn't send one out, but I intend to do it. I intend to send one out before November is over. All right, everyone, that's all I've got. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Again, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to donate something to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are below in the description box. You can also leave a super thanks if you are so moved. Stay safe out there. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I'll talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.